Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, our newsmaker this week is John Cavanaugh. He's the Chancellor of the State System of Higher Education. We're going to talk about what? Higher education and funding. Following that, guess what? It's time for our popular financial literacy update, Pennsylvania politics and government in depth and in detail. And guess what? It all starts right now.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. I was just chatting with the Chancellor. I said we talk normal on this program. Go ahead. Chancellor, as always, welcome.
It's great to be back, Terry.
Well, it's great to have you on. All right, look. The state system budget, along with state related, it was huge news. They recommended a 50% cut. The governor did. Then the legislature dropped that to 15. It ended up, you got what, 18%?
18, right.
So before we get into what you're doing with the money you do get, and I know you want to talk about that, this process, what went on here? I mean, give us your impression of it.
Sure. I think, one of the great benefits of this whole budget arc, if you will, is that it gave us an opportunity to get our message out and to talk to people in ways that historically we just haven't had the opportunity. Because there was a lot of focus on higher education generally, we were able to talk to members of the General Assembly, talk to members of the administration about where we fit in higher education in Pennsylvania, the programs that we deliver, the fact that 90% of our students come from here, 83% stay, right. And all kinds of issues like that, and about our academic programs in ways where everybody was paying attention and people got it. And right. I think that was a big factor in where everything ended up.
One of the things that became newsworthy had to do with, these sort of multiple campus demonstrations and students and professors and administrators, held rally. This is pretty typical, I think, of. And one of the things that struck me, and I've, talked to some reporters about it, and they've been reporting, is I thought that generally the reaction from the campus communities, both your campuses and the state related, was pretty solid, was pretty uplifting. I didn't. What's your general reaction about how your community reacted to this?
Well, I'm very proud of the way that our students and faculty and staff handled the situation, because they went out, we had a message that we needed to deliver, that we're here for the Commonwealth. And they did an outstanding job, whether it was students talking about that, without our universities, they wouldn't have had an opportunity to go to college, or the faculty and staff talking about the programs that they deliver and the services that we deliver. By staying on the message and just talking about what we do, I think that made an enormous difference across the board.
All right, let's look ahead now. Look, you're going to have to deal with 18% fewer dollars. You've got a tuition hike of, 7.5%. I'm sure that didn't. You're not thrilled about that. I know you have to balance the books, but that couldn't. Go ahead.
Well, we have to balance two things. One, we have to maintain a cost structure so that middle-class families can afford to have their sons and daughters and themselves go to college. But as you say, we also have certain expenses to balance out. Right. So it's always a balancing act for us to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep our costs down, and I think we're doing a good job at that, and also to keep the affordability side and on our pricing structure within reach.
So it's sort of a balance.
Families.
So obviously, from what I've been reading around the state, campuses are, they're reevaluating what they do, and they're becoming, I'll say, more efficient and learning to live a little bit with less, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we're really focusing on is the fact that we're a system, and that allows us to collaborate in ways that maybe others can't because they're not in a system.
And this is fairly new.
This is relatively new,
right?
So we're putting a big emphasis on collaborative academic programs that cut across multiple universities. We just put a program in recently in Arabic language and culture.
Right.
Housed at CalU, open to all the students in the system, whether or not you're a student at CalU. And we're really looking for ways, even on the non-academic side, to pool resources to make things more efficient.
I want to run to a break. When I come back, I want to get into that in some detail with you. What you think the collaborative and coordinating.
Sure.
Whenever you get a big system, it's never easy. I mean, to be candid, universities, have professors, they have programs, but I think there's a growing sense among faculties everywhere about this new need to reach across disciplines. Am I right or wrong
Absolutely.
about that?
And, right.
All right, we're going to talk with the Chancellor about that and more coming up after we, I hate to say this, pay some bills.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by ReconnectPA.org, supporting a comprehensive transportation funding solution, and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back. We're talking with the Chancellor of the State System of Higher Education, Dr. John Cavanaugh. We're chatting about higher ed, the impact that the budget reductions, cuts have had on the state system universities. We were talking before the break about a collaboration, and it's fairly obvious given the new technology that's available. I mean, how much stuff is done online? Blackboard, that's a way, you can put lectures and programmatic stuff on, talking about school class material. Is this also an aspect of what makes this more realistic?
Absolutely. And, to really put it in perspective, in 2013, the high broadband network that we were very instrumental in helping to bring to the Commonwealth totally lights up. That's going to open up all kinds of opportunities that we couldn't even envision 5 years ago for real-time two-way audio-video, online courses, and things of that sort. So we're really looking forward and have that as a target date. And then also, just step back and say, what is it that we can bring to students as a system that others might not be able to do? And that's the fact that we've got 14 universities from which a student theoretically could choose his or her parts of their academic program.
Right.
I mean, imagine a student at Bloomsburg, Millersville, Shippensburg, Cal, wherever, who has the opportunity to take courses from any of the other 13 universities as
Absolutely.
part of being a student in the
and
state
particularly
system.
Because you can't afford to have a major. Let's take something like Chinese, where you can't. It'd be difficult to have 14 Chinese programs. So by linking them up in that way,
That's right.
That makes a lot more sense than trying to duplicate and replicate, what you have on one campus, given the tight budgets,
Right.
especially.
And that's exactly the model we use for that new Arabic program that I talked about earlier.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about another aspect of that and that's moving forward. In 5 years, where do you think the state system is in terms of its growth? You now have, over 100,000 students?
We have 120,000 students. I think, one of the things that we're going to need to take a look at is the changing demographics of the state. There will be significantly fewer high school graduates, but there are millions of adults who didn't have the opportunity to go to college, maybe started, stepped out, who would like to come back, and we need to do a better job of reaching out to them. And we also, as a system, need to step back and say, are there things that we're doing that we don't need to do or we can't afford to do anymore?
Right.
And really focus on the academic programs that provide that solid base for a student to be flexible in his or her career, as well as the emerging fields that the Commonwealth is going to need for its future economy.
One of the things that struck me, and I have to fess up here as a former professor at one of the Chancellor schools, Millersville University, I get that plug-in. The president of Millersville will like that, by the way.
Absolutely.
But one of the things that I always thought was really valuable was the regional nature of these universities, where, A, you often are the biggest employer. Number two, where people who couldn't be very mobile could attend schools in their region. You think this new emphasis is going to somehow change all of that, or do you think the schools will still be, if you live in an area, and you're talking about adults who may have families, they want to go to college, they can't pick up and go, to another part of the state, so they'll go to their university, close to their home.
Right. I think it's going to be both, frankly. And if you go back to something that you said earlier about the fact that we either can't afford or there's no reason to have 14 copies of every program, we can have it the best of both. Mm-hmm. We can provide access to that place-bound individual to a campus that then is networked and connected to 13 other universities.
Right.
That will provide a much richer menu of options for that person than they would have had otherwise.
Right.
But they can still have that point of contact locally.
Yeah. I'm going to be a heretic here. And what will your tuitions be next year? Just the tuition.
Tuition be around $6,400.
Okay.
Numbers.
Now, $6,400. Mm-hmm. Now, we're not counting living, because regardless of who you are, where you still have to pay living expenses.
Right.
You know what I always said? So we're talking about $24,000 for a college education. The price of a mid-sized car, am I right or wrong by that? Mm-hmm. Why isn't that still a good deal?
It's a great deal.
I mean,
look, the state system is still the lowest price four-year.
I mean, yeah, and I know comparatively there are other, we're high compared to other states, but I always thought about that, and I'm not arguing for higher tuition, believe me, for public universities. Right. I think, we need to be able to have kids and parents, want to go to school, be able to afford it, not take $90,000, $100,000, $150,000 in debt, with them. But I always thought, a price of a mid-sized car, you can get a quality. I never understood why people didn't think of it in that way. Maybe I'm crazy.
Well, and the thing about education is they can never take that away from you.
Yep, you're right. All right, look, great to see you as always. All right, our popular financial literacy update is on deck. And we'll find out. We're going to talk about some things about paying for college. Right. You'll like that. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program for our popular financial literacy update. Joining me, as often is the case, is Mike Wishnow. He's a senior VP with the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association, and Tim Ames. He's the CEO of the Heritage Valley Federal Credit Union. I keep saying he's in York. We'll get York in here. These credits are too long, Michael, aren't they? We joke about this. Look, before we get, when we had the chancellor on, I want to talk about, what credit unions do in terms of helping folks get loans to go to college. But before I do that, I want to start with the housing market. We get, reports, housing market still in a slump, housing prices still falling, and worse in some areas of the country than others, somewhat of a revival in some places. Now, you all make the loans to the people who borrow money to buy a house.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in the market?
Well, clearly it's a buyer's market. Prices have fallen for the last 3 years. Whether we've hit bottom or not would take a crystal ball.
Right.
But this is the time of year where there is activity. Spring, summer is where there is more activity. We do see a little bit of a spike in loans. Do you see that as well, Tim, in your?
Yeah, we're seeing a little bit of spike there. But one thing I've always said about Pennsylvania is I refer to us as being geographically blessed in the fact that when I look at the states around us as to how they're doing in the real estate market, and then I look at us, I feel fortunate that we're where we're at.
Yeah. You mean there's more stability, there was less speculation, flipping homes like we've seen in Florida and out in the Southwest and in California, where folks took advantage of the high prices, buy a house, put a few improvements in it, maybe not even do that, and then flip it 2 years later because the prices are going up. Yeah, we're old. Come on. Right. We've got, the third oldest population in the country. We're much more, is that your point?
Yeah, we're more of a conservative group. Yeah. I mean, and we didn't get involved in a lot of the crazy financing. Right. Some people got financing without even proving their income.
Right.
They just had to have a score that was high enough, and then someone would give them a loan.
Yeah. And one of the things that we hear now is that some critics of the changes say that it's now too tough. I mean, are we seeing this boomerang effect where before, as Tim points out, you could virtually get a loan whether you could afford to buy a home or not? Now, some are saying, and on some of these business programs, you know, the cable programs are saying, well, now you can't get a loan.
Well,
What's the situation?
Yeah, I think, you know, certainly pendulums swing.
Right.
And I think that certainly in the mortgage market, a paper is still a paper. And
Right.
that means if you have an excellent credit score and you're in the market for a loan, you're going to do just fine.
Right.
If your credit is somewhat less than excellent, you may have a more difficult time. Now, credit unions, Terry, have been pretty moderate and conservative throughout. So our underwriting guidelines, and Tim, I'm sure it's true of your credit union, really haven't changed. Is that fair?
No, they haven't changed. I mean, what's really happened is the fact that a lot of people have lost jobs or been laid off for a while. They've got less income, and now they don't have the income to keep up with the bills they had before. So they're becoming late on some of those payments, which is then lowering their score, and it's just having a domino effect.
I get it. All right, let's talk. You know, we had the chancellor on. By the way, I think there's some pushback now in some quarters about going to college, making the argument that it's not worth it, that, you know, there's not enough learning that's taking place. And I've noticed on some cable shows there's more programming about that subject. But certainly, Michael, we do know that in terms of earnings, there are some substantial differences. What are they?
Absolutely. Absolutely. First of all, I happen to have a youngster in college, and I can tell you that the experience in and of itself, the stuff that's not happening in the classroom, just learning to live on your own, college is a fantastic transition for kids.
Right.
But more than that, the statistics bear out that somebody with a high school degree is making between $30,000 and $35,000 on average. Somebody with a college degree is making between $80,000 and $85,000 on average. So if you take that earning power over the course of one's lifetime, and even if you factor in the cost of college, particularly in the state system, as the chancellor said, you know, relatively speaking, it's a pretty good value. I think that at the end of the day, it makes sense financially.
We're going to run to a break. When I come back, we're going to talk about unemployment and the relationship. But I do think it's worth mentioning that as a lifelong college professor, it ain't for everyone. And I think you guys would agree. We're not saying that everyone should go. We're saying that if you do go, and you do use it properly, and you do, you know, pay your dues, work hard, study hard, and you can play hard, that in effect that, you know, the rewards at the end are certainly greater. All right, we're going to find out what about loans to college students and its relationship with unemployment and some other matters following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Hi, welcome back to the program. We're talking about now all things college and tuitions, unemployment. I've noticed over the years that there's a relationship. You know, if you're a college graduate, you're going to be far more likely to be employed than if you're not, right?
That's fair.
By some substantial percentages, I think, almost double. If you have a high school graduate, 9.8% unemployment, not a high school graduate, 15.5%. So there's a pretty big difference, I think.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about college. Let's talk about how does the loan system work, and what is it that you would suggest that parents do out there when they're looking to send their kids to college? Obviously, they're going to try to get scholarships. Barring that, and they have to go get the money. What's this?
Yeah, obviously the first thing you want to do is you're looking to get some money, and you want to get the cheapest money you can. So if you get a grant, you get scholarships. I mean, a lot of that is free money, and you want to get it, you know, obviously if you could pay the whole school with that, that's the way to go. The next thing you look for is you look for student loans, which you get from the government. Now, the government, every year it makes you fill out what they call the FAFSA form, which is for federal student aid. And from there, they send the information to the school you're going to, and the school determines how much you're allowed to borrow from the government program. The problem we find with that is you're not allowed to borrow a whole lot, especially in the beginning years.
Right.
And so the government offers what they call a Stafford loan. And the Stafford loan is either what they call subsidized or unsubsidized. Subsidized means that while you're in school, you don't have to make any payments, and the government's paying the interest for you on that loan until you graduate.
Until you graduate.
Exactly. The unsubsidized, you're still not making your payments while you're in school, but the interest is accruing and adding to the principal till you graduate.
Now, would they be coming to you or a bank or someplace, a credit union, to borrow the money for the non-subsidized? Is that it? Or,
No.
Go ahead.
Under the Stafford loan program, it used to be through private lenders just 2 or 3 years ago. The federal government took all of that in-house. So they are doing the Stafford lending directly to the student.
Okay. Well, where do the
the problem is, as Tim said, the Stafford loan is capped, particularly in the early years.
Oh, I get it.
What is it, $5,500, I believe, for a freshman?
Yeah, when you
correct?
put those two together, the most you can borrow is $5,500 in year one.
Well, the state-owned system, that may work, but once you go beyond that, right?
Right. So let's say you've gotten grants or haven't gotten grants. You've gotten scholarships, haven't gotten scholarships. You've gone to the Stafford loan.
Right.
You've maxed out at $5,500. Then there's something called a PLUS loan, which is a government loan for parents. Okay.
This is getting complicated.
Absolutely. And then beyond that, there may very well still be a gap between what the parents can afford to help
gosh.
the kids with. And that is where private lenders come in.
It's been a long time since I've had to do this, guys. I mean, I've been through this in a long time. So as we end this segment, what is it that you want to tell parents? I mean, how do they wrap their hands around? How do they get a sense about this?
Well, just to make it easy, again, look for the free money. The next thing is to look at the Stafford loans.
Okay.
And now the
free
rates,
money, Stafford loans. You got that?
Right. So the Stafford loans, and the reason I say that is because the rates are fairly low. Like today, the subsidized portion is a rate of 3.4%. The unsubsidized part is 6.8%. Still, and they're fixed rates until you pay them off. And you've got 20 to 25 years to pay off loans now for school.
Yeah.
But then when you go beyond that, you want to shop. And one way to shop is that PLUS program, which is the government again, but their rate right now is pretty high. It's I think 7.8%.
All right.
But we step in and say, we'll give you a line of credit, which is good for 4 years.
All right,
which is much easier.
This has been very helpful. This is very complicated, and I think you would tell people start early, right?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, thanks for watching this edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.